Welcome to the BJ Show. Let's rock and roll. Rock and roll. Come on, everybody. Let's lose control. Brad and John, they're the ones to follow. Yeah, ready for the ride. It's the BJ Show. BJ Show.
It is Hump Day on the BJ Show, July 9th. Did I get that right, John? July 9th?
That's exactly right, 2025.
2025. The reason I mention that is that we do this show live between 7 and 8 o'clock Central. It's Central Daylight Savings Time. I was going to say Central Standard Time, but it's Central Daylight Savings Time on 104.5, which is being interfered with by the Lutherans, but that's a whole other story. On 104.5 and also on Westplex Talk and also on KSOQ. 3 different radio stations we broadcast this on. Plus, we turn this into a podcast, and in the future, that's why I mentioned the date. You'll know what we talk about as far as time reference is concerned on bjshow.co, bjshow.us. That voice you heard is the voice of John Combest. Good morning to you, John.
Good morning to you, Brad.
He's the guy that every single day of his life for the past 23 years puts together this amazing website. Call it the Drudge Report of the State of Missouri, which is kind of the right way of saying that, right?
It's flattering, Brad. Thank you for that.
And what we do this morning, and let me just further go into that, he puts together this incredible website, dozens of stories on there. It's very low tech. Matter of fact, what version of the web is this, John?
0.0.
For those of you who don't know the reference, go back and watch Animal House. Okay. Anyway, I always get a kick out of that, John. I'm sorry. I don't know why.
I do too.
Anyway, what we do is we start off the show with this guy right here.
I'm Casey Kasem.
And what do you do, sir?
Now on with the countdown.
Counts them down. We start off with...
In third place...
I come bearing bad news from the Post-Dispatch via Kurt Erickson. It's bad news for Missouri state government employees, but it's good news for Brad Hildebrand types. Jeesh. The headline, Missouri state employees face challenges as remote work ends. You will recall, Brad, at the height of the quote-unquote pandemic, Governor Mike Parson allowed a number of state employees to do their work, their computer work, their traditional office work from home. Do it from the confines of your own living room, Brad. Do a little laundry, take a little nap, eat a little lunch, go to the gym. No big whoop. You deserve it. Well, Mike Kehoe says you guys are going to get your booties back to the office. And this is providing some challenges to state workers, Brad. Not only might it affect your nap schedule or your laundry schedule, or catching up on Days of Our Lives or WWE, it probably affects your daily commute. It affects how much you got to drive your car. And in fact, one of the biggest headaches so far is at the Missouri Department of Social Services. Most of those folks work out of the Truman Building, according to Kurt Erickson's piece. And now there's a parking problem, Brad. Traffic jams in the morning. Everybody wants to work early, according to this story, because they want to get a good parking spot. They want to work maybe a little bit earlier shifts, so to speak. But there's nowhere to park because everybody's finally coming back to the office now. So it's creating some parking headaches. DSS spokeswoman Bailey Watts says there have been some challenges related to space and parking, and the department is actively working to address them by taking steps to mitigate the impact on team members and operations. So there you go, Brad. I hope you're happy when you and guys like Mike Kehoe say workers have to go back to the office. It creates a bunch of headaches for the men and women that work for Missouri state government. Hope you're happy, Brad.
John, during your story there, I was thinking KC and the Sunshine Band.
And why is that, Brad?
Because you sort of gave a line out of KC and the Sunshine Band.
Get down which one was that?
You said you gave 3 things in a row. You said da 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 da. Remember those 3 things you said in a row?
Oh, do a little dance.
Right.
Go to DSS.
Right.
Park close tonight.
Right. That's like KC and the Sunshine Band. Get down tonight. Dun 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 dun. Get down tonight. Make a little love.
You know what? Every once in a while, Brad, when you have your acid flashbacks to the barn at Lucerne, we all benefit. It was the first Casey and the Sunshine reference in months, I think. So what do you think of this, Brad? Let me guess. you think state workers should go work in an office.
John, first off, there is no parking problem in Jefferson City. The people there, as a veteran of going, have you ever been in the Truman State Office building, John? John, are you there?
Yeah, I think I went in early 96.
Boy, you've been there recently, haven't you? I was there a couple months ago. Okay, I've been there several times. Okay, there's tons of parking, I guess would be on the north side. And even if and here's the problem. The state workers don't want to walk because if you go probably, 1,000 feet away is the Kirkpatrick building, the SOS building. Isn't that the Kirkpatrick building? Is that what they call it?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I was going to ask if you were getting it confused with Kirkpatrick. But yeah, I mean, they're both big office buildings and a lot of people work in them.
Right, but there's tons of parking down the street. There's tons of parking. I mean, what these people are upset about was, oh, I got to go to work. Do you mean I got to walk 100 feet into a building? I can't park in that space right in front? BS. I mean, life's tough. And you know what's sort of interesting about this is Brad's number one this morning, which is sort of interesting because I have a problem with this whole, I'll call it the COVID hangover thing, which is, think about this for a minute, John. How long has it been, the COVID thing has been in our rearview mirror? 2 years now?
At least more than 2 years. I think that most people recognize that COVID was over probably the end of 2022. So more than 2 years, Brad.
Okay, here we're halfway through 2025, and these people, oh, you mean I got to go to work? You know, if I ran the place, I'd say, no, stay home, and your job's terminated. I would just say, hey, it's been nice working here. You know what? If we're paying you money and you got this gold-plated state pension you're going to get, and you got gold-plated state health care, and you got all these other spiffs that state workers get, if you can't get your butt out of your house, in your car, down the highway, into the parking lot, into the office building, guess what? We'll find somebody who'll do that job. You know what I'm saying? See what I'm saying, John?
I hate to give you a peek behind the curtain, Brad, but I was really hoping that story number 3 today would get you a little bit riled up.
You know what's so interesting about it is, as Americans, see, here's the interesting thing. Okay, you see the immigrants who come to this country and work their butts off. And it's interesting, I've done a lot of reading on this, and what's interesting about it is there's a tremendous disappointment with first-generation immigrants who'd come to this country with their disappointment with their offspring, the second generation. Do you know why?
Because they feel like their offspring become lazy, and they bring their work ethic down to the lowest common American denominator.
Well, yeah, they don't want to work. And let's say the first-generation Americans come into this country and make a lot of money. They come here with like literally nothing, start a business, do whatever, and they make a lot of money, and they, take care of their kids, put them in nice schools, buy them cars. Then the second generation, I don't want to do that, Dad. I might get my fingernails dirty. You know what I mean? That kind of stuff. God, jeez. And to the point where if you want to, I told you this story before. I mean, this friend of mine that owns a lawn care company.
And they're all Swedish, right, Brad?
No, he says.
Aren't they all have very fair skin, and they like to sit and they like to smoke their cigarettes? Isn't that what they do?
The American workers that work for him, they got to talk to their girlfriend every 20 minutes on the phone. They got to take a smoke break every 30 minutes. They complain about it's too hot. The Mexican workers, they don't have a cell phone. They don't smoke. They don't call their girlfriend. They work. And he talks about this all the time. He says, give me 20 Mexican guys, they do the work of 40 American dudes. And that's not true all the time, but you know what I'm saying?
So is what you're suggesting is that Governor Kehoe should hire a bunch of Mexicans to work in state office buildings?
You see, it's funny about that is that these people are going, I got to come to work. You find a bunch of immigrants and you give them this job that they don't have to go out and work in the hot sun and stuff like that. They don't have to put roofs on. They don't have to, cut grass. They're going like, man, I'll take that job, sit in an office building with, 72 degrees year round, a pension, all that kind of stuff, health care. Where do I sign? You know what I'm saying? Story
number 3 was brought to us by Boomer Work Ethic, co-sponsored by Mike Kehoe and Brad Hildebrand. I know who's got a great work ethic. The guy in story number 2.
Up a notch to number 2.
And when we talk about great work ethics, Brad, we talk about a guy like Mike Elam. as you're fond of pointing out, Mike Elam is pretty much a host at 97.1. And in fact, yesterday, he sat in for Mark Reardon on the Mark Reardon Show. Now, Mike had a cavalcade of great guests, but we'll just highlight one. State Senator Nick Schroer, who represents the Defiance area and a large swath of St. Charles County, was a guest on the Mark Reardon Show via Mike Elam. And Schroer was particularly talking about a trip that a number of Missouri state legislators and statewide office holders took this week to Washington, D.C., meeting with Trump officials. Now, Senator Schroer points out they didn't get to meet with Trump because at the moment when Schroer was on the phone with Mike Elam, Trump was actually meeting with Benjamin Netanyahu at the time and somehow didn't have time for the Missouri delegation when you're meeting with Netanyahu. But Schroer went through a list of folks that the Missouri delegation got a chance to meet with, folks that were heads of different departments to talk a little bit about Missouri. Most interestingly, in my opinion, Senator Schroer says that the team got to meet up with Will Scharf. He's a superstar, front and center these days in the Trump administration. Also a guy named Alex Meyer, who's a Missouri native, who is a honcho in the Trump administration these days. So if you scroll through social media, Brad, you will see pictures on, I'm guessing, Boomer Facebook, but also stuff for people under 80, like Instagram and TikTok and YouTube. You'll see videos and photos of dozens of Missouri folks that are in D.C. Nick Schroer said by his count, there were like 70 people who were at the White House for these meetings. So anyway, that's what we have. We have Mike Elam. Brad, you just sent me a picture that is quite scary, and I don't know why it showed up on my phone. Okay. Anyway, sorry, that threw me off there for a minute. But Nick Schroer was a special guest of Mike Elam. And I'll also point out, for folks who might be interested, St. Charles County Executive Steve Elam was a guest of Mike Elam yesterday, too. And Steve went through, the whole concept of getting rid of personal property taxes sounds really good. But what does it mean for Missouri counties? Steve Elam went through that. You'll find a link on my website today.
Two things of that. Are you talking about Ricky Schroer? Is that who you're talking about?
I'm talking about Senator Nick Schroer. Yeah, Brad.
Okay. Can I give you my opinion on that?
Yeah, please do.
70 people from Missouri went, and we paid for it. I don't think that's right.
I don't think any taxpayer money was paid for it, Brad. But go ahead with your anti-Schroer slur.
Are you sure about that? You said
no. I didn't check, and you're not sure about it either, Brad. So don't speculate when you don't know the facts. Go ahead.
You said that he represents the people of Defiance and also the old lady.
Man, do you have a basement apartment punchline, Brad?
The old ladies in O'Fallon that rent out their basements.
Oh my gosh, that's so
John.
funny, Brad. I think there's a dead horse somewhere off a Old State Road or Osage Ridge Road or whatever. And I think that dead horse has been beaten so many times, Brad.
And the second thing is Mark Reardon. Here we go again. I want Mark Reardon's job because I think so far this year, I think he's worked 40 days on the air. He's always gone.
And don't you think he's earned it, Brad?
No. I mean, see, here's the problem, John. The problem is, here's a perfect example. Okay, let's say you decide you're going to go to Las Vegas, okay, and you bought tickets to Artist in Residence. Let's say back in the day it was Britney Spears. And you show up for the concert, and right before the concert starts, the announcer says, and filling in for Britney Spears tonight is Mike Elam.
I get your point, and I didn't pay to listen to 97.1, so I didn't purchase tickets, right?
But I go back to my old program director in radio, and he said, radio should be like McDonald's. When you show up there, there's always a Big Mac, okay? If you went to McDonald's today and said, I want a Big Mac, they go, I'm sorry, sir, we don't have them on Wednesdays. We have Quarter Pounder with cheeses instead on Wednesdays. You go, hey, this is McDonald's. I want a Big Mac. See, that's the problem. See,
I know. It's like when I go to Small Sliders and I expect their menu to be the exact same as McDonald's and White Castle. and then I get crabby about it on the radio because I didn't read the menu. It's the exact same thing, Brad.
It was misrepresented to me by a very nice lady. I said, is this the same as White Castle? And she said, yes. And when I said, okay, I know what a number one at White Castle is, by the way, is 4 hamburgers. I had it just yesterday for lunch. 4 hamburgers, a French fry, and a drink. And by the way, I saw Mike Elam yesterday. As a matter of fact, it's funny. I saw him at the Cottleville Weldon Springs Chamber of Commerce meeting. I didn't go in because I didn't want to be thrown out again.
Yeah,
but
obviously.
I do this thing. I don't know if I told you this or not, John. I play doorman. I open the door for people and greet them as they come in, and then I leave. But that's a whole other story. Mike is looking so damn good. He's lost over 70 pounds.
Holy cow. Is it some kind of a tapeworm, or is it like,
no,
it's not the HIV or anything?
I don't know. I mean, he's just looking good. I mean, as he walked in the door, I go, Mike, don't turn sideways. I can't see you. He's looking good. I mean, we talked about he had to buy all new clothes. Okay, ready for number 1?
I sure am.
The number 1.
Our long national North County nightmare is over. Josh Hawley, upon the passage of Trump's One Big Beautiful Bill, spearheaded the effort to include Radiation Exposure Compensation Act and that One Big Beautiful Bill. And Josh Hawley brought together black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics. That's my MLK. Brought everybody together to St. Sin Park in Hazelwood. Brad, I'm going to cut right to the chase. A number of outlets pointed out that an emotional highlight, was Senator Josh Hawley wrapping his arms and a warm embrace around Cori Bush. That's right, the member of the squad, the woman who was defeated in last year's Democratic congressional primary by Wesley Bell. Josh Hawley says that this bill would not have been that this whole thing would not have happened if it wasn't for the efforts of Cori Bush over a period of years. It was a beautiful, beautiful bipartisan moment in Hazelwood yesterday, Brad. I know you saw clips of this. I know you saw news coverage of this. Brad, what do you think about the big bipartisan confab?
John, that's my number 2 for Brad's top 3 this morning. So
of course it is, Brad. You wouldn't think, gee, it's the biggest story. John's going to include it, so I should do something different for B Block. No, you would definitely include it. So what do you think? Do you want to save the conversation till B Block?
See, the sad thing about this is Cori Bush, I think I know you won't do this, but there's context that I have about Cori Bush.
And I'm not going to watch the movie, but for people who don't know, explain what it is, Brad. And do you remember the name of it?
It was called Rock the House or Rock the Vote or something like that. And it was an interesting story because it was a husband and wife team that did documentaries. And what they did was, I guess Cori Bush was elected in 2018. She was in the same class as AOC. Wasn't it 2018?
No, she was not elected. She ran that year. She actually won back in the year 2020.
Cori Bush did?
Yeah.
No, I think it's 2018.
Okay, you can look it up. I'm right. Go ahead.
Okay. Anyway, they did because she was in the same class as AOC, and AOC, I think this is her 4th term.
Yeah, you got your math wrong, but go ahead. We got a minute left, so go ahead and talk about the movie.
Okay. It was the documentary team, husband and wife documentary team, took 4 women who were running for U.S. Congress who've never been in Congress before. All of them had different backgrounds, and one of them turned out to be AOC. That's why this documentary became very popular. And Cori Bush was in that documentary, and she came off as a very reasoned, down-to-earth person. Talked about her background, single mother, nurse, the whole bit. And I was impressed by her. Well, then she gets elected, and she goes crazy weird and nuts. You know what I mean? It's just like, okay, what happened to that nice lady in that documentary? I mean, where did she go? You know what I'm saying?
Well, politics might have made her maybe a little bit more rough around the edges or crude or cynical. The movie is available on Netflix, and it's called Knock Down the House.
Knock Down the House.
It talks about AOC's victory in 2018.
See?
And then, of course, as I mentioned, Lacey Clay was defeated by Cori Bush in 2020.
Right, but she ran in 2018. That's what I meant. She did.
Correct, yes. She did not win in 2018.
Right.
She was not part of the same class.
Right, and the 4 women that they chronicle, only one of them won, and that was AOC. Now, the interesting behind-the-scenes thing, the husband and wife team, I think they spent like $50,000 or $60,000 for their own money to do this documentary. And because AOC was in the doc, I think Netflix came along and bought it for like $11 million. So they did okay for themselves. Okay, we have to move along. I'm trying to keep the show on the road this morning, and timing-wise, and John's always, saying, Brad, let's talk some more. I go, no, John, we got to go.
That's typical John.
Okay.